October the 3rd, and now today is October the 31st. All I can do is apologize for my attempt to come to you every Thursday since the last Thursday that we were here. I can't even remember half of the things that went wrong on those days. Nevertheless, I am here, and I am not even going to promise that we're going to do 2 weeks in a row. We're just going to go with where we are. But I was excited to get to this because now we're just beyond the halfway point. The Gospel of Mark has, is it 16 or 14? 16 chapters, and we're approaching chapter 9. But more importantly, just outside of being at the halfway point through the gospel, we're kind of sort of at the halfway point through the whole Jesus ministry thing. So we know that he lived 30 years. His ministry was only 3 to 4 years. But we're right at that climax where, it's kind of getting to that point where they were going to take him out. They had been plotting that ever since he went into the synagogue that day at the beginning of his ministry, basically, and healed the man who had the withered hand. And remember, they watched him closely to see whether or not he was going to heal him on the Sabbath, that they may accuse him. And he did just that and told them about themselves during that period. So that was some time ago. And then we got to all of the other things that were happening. And last time that we did meet, I was saying, how many signs do you need? Because Jesus was asking not only his disciples, but more importantly, the Pharisees, how many more signs do you need to know who I am? And so now we get to the real climax in the mind of Jesus. And so if you think that this was just something that was haphazardly written, and yes, it tells the life and the story, and it just kind of puts it all out there, there's actually a very nice pattern in which it was done. And this tells you about the mind of Christ, because at this particular juncture, Jesus wants to know, am I making a difference? And so I think we started our little ministry here, the Whole of You Life thing with Dr. Dallas. I know it was in January. I'm just not sure if it was January 2022 or 2023. It probably had to have been 2022 because I think that we've gone at least 2 years. So we'll be coming up on our 3rd year this coming January. And until here recently, when I can't seem to get back to you every other Thursday, the first year and a half, more than three quarters of this time period, we were like clockwork. Every other Thursday, bam, even at 3 o'clock, we were like right on time and everything. And then things got a little hectic. But for the most part, we try to really keep in touch with you. And so I would venture to say, if it's been 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 3/4 years, every other week, with there being 52 weeks in a year, there would be 26 times 2.5, at least 55 videos that you have access to, because they've all been, after we do our live Facebook, we download them onto our actual YouTube channel, AskDrDallas, and there you will find all of this information and a whole lot of other information. So there are video clips that you have that may not want to listen to me preach a little, but you at least get the information about the raw food preparation, how to maintain health and wellness, all the information that goes along with it, the whys, and why we do what we do, and why we eat what we eat, and what's in and what's good about green stuff and red stuff and yellow stuff. All that information is in here. You can watch it 100 times. And then you'll begin to let it be a part of you subconsciously so that you can implement it in your lifestyles easier. And so I could say, that's why I love this thing that we're going to do today, because I could ask the same question that Jesus is going to ask. Does this make any difference to you? And thank you, Wendy. I don't know if you're out there yet, but I know Wendy just faithfully, as faithful as I am trying to bring this information to you, Wendy faithfully tells me every time that she watches the video, thank you so much for that information. It was so helpful. And though I hear lately, I'm not sure if we've done something different. Maybe it's because I wasn't tagging, but I noticed the last month or two, we've got our little 400 or 500 people that are watching on a regular basis without us doing any type of advertising, because I'm just way too lazy to do that. And I'm going to start because it's a part of letting more people know the good news, the gospel, as well as how they can improve their health. So we're going to do that. But that's what we're talking about today. So I'm going to read you the scripture, and then I'm going to tell you how I'm so excited how it ties in to what we're doing, which is going to be easier for me to illustrate to you the actual meaning of these scriptures that I'm reading. And the scriptures that I'm reading are coming from Mark 8, verses 27 through 30. This is where Peter confesses that Jesus is the Christ. That was a big deal. Okay. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And on the road, he asked his disciples, saying to them, "Who do men say that I am?" So they answered, "John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." Then he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Can you imagine that? We'll get into that. And so Peter answered and said to him, "You are the Christ." Go, Peter. Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. I was going to split this up in two, but because we can barely get here every other week here, I can easily side that second piece. The second piece is the most important piece. However, getting to the first, it's only four verses here. The first three are the ones that are focused on what Jesus is feeling. He knows that the cross is coming soon. His time is coming to a head here because they're coming after him from every direction. And so he knows that if he just goes to the cross, he understood what his task was from the very beginning. Even when he was working as a carpenter in Nazareth for all those years, he knew exactly what his task was. He knew when his task was to begin. He knew how he was going to complete his task. The method in which he went about it, when he announced who he was, when he went and got his little group, the motley crew, Charles Stanley used to call them, the 12, when he appointed his 12, he knew how he was going to achieve his task. But even him had, I don't say a doubt or reservation, but he asked the question. And the way that he asked the question, "But who do you say that I am?" It's kind of like when you're hanging out with somebody, I guess you've been dating, you're going out, and then you're doing all these little things, and then you just ask the question, because you know how men could not be so communicative. And you just say, "Do you love me, honey?" And you never want to ask the question, because once you ask the question, it's almost like you have to force someone to say, or, bring that out of them. Why should you have to bring that out of them? And then, of course, if they say, "Of course I love you," then it doesn't mean anything because they never were able to proclaim that on their own. And then there's just this big thing. But then there's the curiosity of wanting the question to be answered. And then what? When you get the answer to the question, where's the sincerity in the question? Is there any sincerity in the answer, that is? And so you have Jesus at this point where you kind of want to know, but you don't want to know. You do things for people. You go out of your way for folks. You're willing to just put it all on the line for your friends and folks. And you just wonder sometimes, would the favor be reciprocated? And you want to wish that. You want to believe that people are as dedicated to your relationship, your loyalty, as if they would be as loyal. But you hope that, but you don't know for sure. And for some of us, we don't want to know for sure. You just want to keep on believing that they would. But every now and then, you either ask the question or, unfortunately, you find out. And hopefully when you find out, it goes the way that you want it to go, but sometimes it doesn't. But nevertheless, you have Jesus here, and he asked the question. I can just imagine what it felt like when they're like, "Oh," because just look at the excitement in which they say. And not just the excitement, but the knowledge in which they emphatically say, "Oh, they say you're John the Baptist. Oh, they say you're one of the prophets. Oh, Elijah for sure." And it's almost like they're telling him what people are saying, but at the same time, they've decided that they've kind of put themselves into one of those categories. Yeah, people say, can imagine who said, because it doesn't say here, it just says he asked the question and then they answered. Did they answer simultaneously? I can imagine in my sanctified imagination that out of the 12, 3 of them were like huddled together saying John the Baptist and like shaking their head like they say you're John the Baptist and shaking their head in agreement like we think you're John the Baptist, or they say you're Elijah and I feel you're probably Elijah. And then the other little group says, yeah, they say you're a prophet. Yeah, you've got to be a prophet because you just seem to know everything. But Peter, it says, but Peter. It didn't say they said, it said, but Peter said, you are the Christ. Now, what's important, what's additionally important here is where it's said. And that's why I say you have to know that Jesus planned this, because it tells us that they went to Caesarea of Philippi. This was outside of Galilee. So this wasn't a part of the Herod thing. This was a part of an area that was notorious for Baal worship way back when. And when it was way back when, they had done some things to somewhat make not a legacy, but just make this be the place of Bel forever. You know how you come places and you want to put your imprint somewhere, and the home that I purchased, the handprints of the 3 children that lived here are in the cement. So when they put the walkway around the house, there are 3 little handprints there, and those are the children. So forever, as long as that walkway is there, those were the handprints of the Wassam children. And we do things like that on a more monumental level. And in this particular area, it was known for that worship. And then there was known for, they call it today, they say, the area of Panis, Panis, for the god Panis, who was the god of nature. And so there was this hillside that they literally grew, or not grew, but constructed like a marble temple, because out of the marble limestone. But it's like came out of the mountain, so it was structured utilizing the mountainside. So it's something that's going to be a permanent structure. And so you had that, and then you had an area also on the hillside where water would gush out that supposedly was the beginning of the Jordan River. So when you came into this area, you had the whole name, which signified the old Baal worship. Then you had the whole marble temple, which you can just imagine how it shined at the nighttime because of how limestone glows at night, and then what it looks like in the daytime when the sun is penetrating it, it just kind of blinds you. You've got that going on, and then you've got this opening where water gushes out that reminds you of the Jordan River, and with these guys, all of the history behind the Israelites in the Jordan River. So you come to this area, and I'm thinking when I was in Egypt, you came in, when I was driving, because I got so sick over there, you had the red clay mountains, and then you had all of these things that reminded you of what area this was, the holiest land. And so when you come to areas like that, you're thinking of these things. So Jesus purposely walked his disciples out of the region of Galilee into this area, and he waited until he got right there in the midst of this temple for the God of nature worship and everything else that this area had signified, with 12 people that were very aware of the religious history that was embedded in this area. That is what I'm setting the stage for. So they've got all of this stuff. The Greek gods, the god in which they made the temple, the marble temple for, was supposed to be the god of Caesar, who's supposed to be the god who they thought was the god of everything and forever. And so you put them in this environment where you've got all these things reminding them of these types of gods, famous for the past, for some still famous forever to be. One of the wonders of the world, this area is. And in the middle of that, in the middle of where your mind can escape, and I'm trying to think of an example as I'm speaking to you, it's when we go to wherever and we're just into whatever's happening in that particular area. You know, when I went to Egypt and you went to the valley of the tombs and, the mummies, and, that's where your head is. And then someone comes and reminds you that that's historical, but it's not really a part of your DNA, And so Jesus, in the middle of all of this, where they can see all these things, their mind is probably wandering, their mind is fixated on historical events. He says, who do the people say I am? And then, for Peter, who we love to hit over the head, Peter, in the middle of all of this fantastic history about these gods who have proven themselves to be so great in and of their character at the time, says, you are the Christ. The homeless man from Nazareth, who was a carpenter, in the middle of all of these historical great gods, Peter says, yeah, you are the Christ. You are the Christ. I don't care what history says. I don't care where we're standing. I say you, the man that doesn't have a place to lay his head, is the Christ, the anointed one, the Son of God. And that is why he says Peter will be, is the solid rock. So we have all of that going on, but then here's the part that you've probably heard 1,500 sermons on in 15 different ways, depending on whatever people want you to think. So then he says, then, he doesn't say, it just says, then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. Now that he's pretty much confirmed, yes, Peter, I am the Christ. However, do not tell anyone. And why would he say that? Because from what he's saying, or from what they're saying, no one knew that. Because they're saying what? They're not saying he's the Christ. They've already said what they're saying. People are saying that you're John the Baptist, you're Elijah, you're some prophet. But no one is saying that you're the Christ except Peter. Peter said, you are the Christ. And that is why Jesus said to him, do not tell anyone, because these other people don't know that. You've already admitted that you know that they don't know that. And let's keep it that way. And so why? The question becomes why. If you recall, during the beginning of this chapter, not this chapter, but this book, every time Jesus would heal the man who was in the synagogue that had the unclean spirit, the leper who came and implored him to heal him, you can make me clean, is what the leper said. The leper said, if you are willing, you can make me clean. How would he be able to say that? How would he know that? And the minute that Jesus healed him, he said what? He said, he strictly warned him, see to it that you speak none of this to anyone, but go on your way, show yourself to the priest, present those things that Moses has said for testimony for your cleansing, and keep your mouth shut. And same thing after the man with the unclean spirit, when he told the man, be quiet and come out of him, after the unclean spirit had convulsed the man, cried out in a loud voice, and then came out of him, Jesus says what? He says he told him, do not tell anyone. When he would cast out demons, every time he would cast out demons, he said he cast out the demons, and then he would not permit them to speak because they knew him. All of the unclean spirits, all the lepers, all the damaged goods knew who he was. Because that's there. It says when he came up out of the waters, when John baptized him in the Jordan, that the Spirit descended upon him like a dove. They specifically use dove because that is the symbol of love. And it says a voice came from heaven saying that you are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And every time he would heal someone that had an unclean spirit, the man with the withered hand, the paralytic, everybody, he would tell them to do not tell anyone who he was. The unclean spirits knew who he was. And so why? Because they accepted him as that. The other people who thought he was John the Baptist, the other people who thought he was Elijah, the other people who thought he was a prophet, were a part of everyone's thing. It's what you want. It's what you believe. And they knew of the Messiah to come. They knew of the anointed one to come, but they had put in their mind what that should look like. We do that all the time. We put in our mind what our Christian life should look like. We put in our mind what our blessing should be, what our blessing should look like, with little or no respect for what God wants our blessings to look like, for what God wants our lives to look like. And then we get so far along that trajectory that if anything looks unlike what we want our blessings to look like, what we want our life to look like, then we seem to think that something's going wrong. The devil must be on my path. The devil must be on my track. It's nothing but the devil. Very seldom do we stop and say, well, maybe God wants me in this predicament at this time. No, because we already have decided what we want and what it should look like. And the people of this time had decided what the Messiah should look like, what the one that was going to come to God was going to look like, keeping in mind that they were the chosen one. They were the children of Israel. They were the ones that eventually would have reign and would rule. And so what would that look like initially? Initially, that would look like a bloodbath, because that meant that something would have to come and take place. And right now, they were slaves for the most part. And so they're looking at, okay, after a while and everything that had happened to them in their past from the time that they left the Jordan River, they had said, well, this obviously is not going to happen naturally. So it must be a supernatural thing that must happen. And in order for that to happen, it's going to require some supernatural activity to happen. And so though eventually in their minds for Messiahship, they knew that one day there would be the conquering God. But the path, the trajectory from where they were now to get to the point where the God that was the father of the children of Israel would be leading would have to be this catastrophic series of events in order for things to turn around and for them who were in bondage to basically now be in rulership. And so that's where everything happened. And that's where Jesus was saying, if I come out now and I'm homeless, I don't have a place to lay my head, and everybody is against me, and I tell them, or they realize that I'm the Messiah, what is that going to look like? We've done it before too, when people have sent help our way and we wanted our help to look a certain way, or people have sent potential husbands our way and we wanted them to look a certain way. People just, they want what they want. And they will make themselves believe that, oh no, this is a mistake. This is not the person I'm supposed to have. This is not the job I'm supposed to have. And so what this thing is saying is that if he would have come out with that, it would have just caused a whole lot of trouble trying to get people and convince them, yes, this is what the Messiah looks like. Yes, it's coming in on a donkey. People didn't want to hear that. And so he knew that would be more trouble on top of all the trouble that he had already stirred up. Isn't that amazing? That is just so amazing that he was smart enough to see that, but more so that he recognized that we would be reading this historical data at a time where we too had become just like these people, where we don't want to do what God wants us to do or have a life that looks like a Christian-led life, because we are so engrossed in the world and what the world thinks prosperity and success and goodness and all the rest of the stuff should look like. And we're just so wrapped up in it that we don't even realize it. I was talking to somebody yesterday and we were talking about, things to come after Tuesday, the election. And I said, the church has bought in. We've drank of the cultural Kool-Aid of self-fulfillment. It's about us and what we want, and it's in direct conflict with what Jesus came saying. Come, follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. And what did they do? They immediately left their nets. They immediately left their livelihood. They immediately left those things that they were doing and they were used to doing and went after him. If you want to be my disciples, you must pick up your cross and carry it daily. You must deny yourself. That is basically all that he and Paul was saying in terms of Christian life, is that self-denial. And self-denial is diametrically opposed to everything that we think of today, because everything today is about us. It is about me doing me. We want to be our own gods. And when we talk about and we look at statistics, I was telling someone, when you look at the surveys of mental health, I told them I was dealing with about a good handful of people, 6, 7 people that literally are suicidal, that I have been on the phone with these people for the last 3 weeks. This is one of the reasons I have not been here every other week. And the pouring out that you have to do in extending a lifeline to people instead of them coming onto the shore with you and taking in those biblical things that you're telling them about why, life isn't going to be fun all the time, just pouring out. They don't want to come on the shore. They rather pull you into the water with them, and you have to be careful about that. And let people know. I had to tell somebody, okay, well, you know what? I think you need to call 911 and tell them that you are thinking about hurting yourself. Because you're not listening to what I am saying. You really don't want to hear it. And so this tells you that there's something deeper. And a lot of this, because you can't get into a lot of that when you are trying to console, comfort, encourage people when they are thinking about hurting themselves. But you have to, know where to draw that boundary line as well, And the thing is that it comes from the same thing. It comes from the victimhood. This thing of wanting to define ourselves, define who we are, our self-identity, etc. It sounds great. It sounds exhilarating. It sounds like, I'm in charge of me, But that is exhausting as hell. Because everything that goes wrong, you can't blame anybody but you. The good thing about us is we can at least say, you know what? Obviously God wants me here. Do you know what I mean? It is great to be able to wake up every morning and know that I don't really have to deal with all of this on my own. Do you know? It's not I have to remind myself that I'm a sheep and that I am limited in my ability to know and think as far as controlling things is concerned. I have to remind myself that I am to resort to that childhood behavior and let God handle that. And just to stay in my little lane and do what I'm supposed to do. But when you are you and you're defining you and you don't believe or have a God, then you're always on one side. Here's the two-headed sword here, is that you're always one relationship, one job, one experience, one proposal, one whatever, from having that perfection that you think that you can obtain because you're in charge of you, you've defined who you are, but you'll find out that you will never get there. That one job, that one experience, that one whatever that looks like it's right here in your grasp is never going to happen. And even if it happens, it is never going to be what you think it's going to be. And there's always going to be the next job or the next experience or the next relationship that you have to obtain in order to get that peace that you're looking for. And it never happens. And that is where the anxiety comes from. That is where the depression comes from. That is why we're where we are today with the level of suicide and the desires to not want to be here anymore, because people are exhausted from trying to take care of this life that they're defining for themselves in this world that they think they control. And the answer, this is the answer, and that is all you can tell people. The other thing that we can do is demonstrate it in our lives and be totally honest. I don't like that word, transparent or authentic, but just to let people know that, I love the Lord. God, someone said to me, I don't know about this God of yours that would allow these things to happen. And this was after the hurricanes. And I just looked, and this person was getting ready to go on a plane and leave the country. I said, you know what? You better check yourself. Because folks just don't know. But this is where we are. And these are people that live with you. These are people that work with you. These are people that, go to church with you. A lot of people in the church don't believe in what they're selling. They too drink in the Kool-Aid. And so it's a lot of work to be done. And that is why we keep coming and we keep doing what we're doing. But Jesus wants to know that the work that he's been doing is in order for it to go on, because he knew what the church was to be and was to look like. How does that happen? It can only happen if he was making an impression on the hearts of people. When we talk about the parable of the sower, and he says, do you not understand this parable? How else are you going to understand all of the other parables? The sower sows the seed, and when it gets down to the seed that falls along the wayside, it says this is the seed that falls along the wayside. And when it is sown, Satan immediately comes and steals it from the hearts on which it was sown on. That word has to be, first of all, sown on your heart. But then secondly, when it falls on the stony ground, because there was no root to it, because it had no depth to it, the first time there's a persecution or some tribulation, then the person suffers because they had no root to them. It withered away. And so that thing that's sown onto our heart, in order for it to penetrate, then we must have to go and restudy and reread that which has been sown on our hearts and make it a part of us. And then we can do what the good soil, the seed that fell in the good soil did. And then, that's to produce a crop that continues to increase, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. And that is by us doing that and living that which we have come to believe. And this is what I tell people all the time, is we don't believe in what we're selling. And that is so obvious. It is so obvious. Not only when people come against trials and tribulations, persecution, but just more importantly, their lack of love. People's lack of love and their lack of gratitude. To me, every day I see it, I am just like blown away at the level of ingratitude. So here we are. So he wanted to know, am I making an impression? And that was all he needed to confirm that when Jesus stood there in the middle of all of these fake gods and the history surrounding that place and says, you don't look like you've been etched out of limestone. You don't have this historical experience or history behind you like these great Greek gods. But you, the man from Nazareth that's walking along the beachside looking for your help, you are the Christ. And imagine what that made Jesus feel like. Just wonderful in his heart to know that this time that he had poured into these individuals, that he had taken them under their wing and mentored them and showed them, allowed them to have the power to cast out demons and to heal sickness, that it was making a difference, that he was imprinting himself, which is what? Love, forgiveness, encouragement. He was imprinting, making that imprint upon the heart of Peter. And so when I asked the question, have you ever prepared any of these things that we've taught you how to do? Are you listening to anything I've been saying for the 2 years? You want to know, but then you just say, you know what, I'm just going to keep on doing this. And I guess if you keep on listening, at some point, something's going to click in. Now, so today we're going to do something a little different, because I think sometimes I do things and I do them again and again because they're really good for you. But this is one of my favorite little go-to dishes. Now, if you can see what we have here whenever we prepare anything, live, raw food, and why are we doing this? Because it's whole. It's whole. We have to be whole before we can have this thing on our heart and believing in it. Our mind must be right, and we have to be in that physical thing where, first of all, we can stay awake long enough to hear what I'm saying. We can do the exercise piece, but we want to be strong. Jesus asked the man at the well, not at the well, but at the Bethesda pool. He didn't say, do you want to be healthy? He says, do you want to be whole? Because the man was thinking, if I can get in the water, when the water stirs up, this angel is going to change my predicament. Obviously, he was a mental case. Okay. So Jesus is like, do you want to be made whole? Do you want to walk physically? But do you also want me to do something between your ears so that you are not thinking that some angel stirring some water can make you well again? So this is the same thing that we want to do. We want to make you well, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So we always talk about the importance of having a variety of colors when we prepare any dish. We talk about the importance of eating as many raw foods as possible. There are people, we have fresh garlic here because we want to have garlic every day. It is just that thing that keeps you well, because nothing can survive in an environment that has the properties that garlic has. Nothing that's bad, nothing that's harmful or causes sickness or disease. And the same thing, garlic is actually the sister. Like you have apples and pears, you have oranges and lemons, you have garlic and onions. So I try to eat onions and garlic every single day. We talk about the importance of green foods because green foods clean the blood. So we have parsley and we have cilantro because they are just huge in the medicinal world. I told you on several occasions that 3 sprigs, this is like a sprig, 3 sprigs of parsley have just as much calcium as a small plate of spinach. It has more vitamin C than an entire glass of orange juice. And it has more iron than the spinach, I believe. So vitamin A than a plate of carrots. So you get vitamin A, you get vitamin C, you get iron, and calcium in 3 sprigs of spinach. That is just invaluable. And so that's what we want to make sure that when you chew on it, it freshens your breath if you've had garlic. So it's just so great for you. And then celery is always my favorite. I eat raw celery sticks and carrot sticks because the 2 of them, the celery for its sodium and the carrot sticks for their potassium, helps to maintain the balance of our cellular level because of the intracellular and the extracellular fluid. And then we have red and yellow peppers. These are sweet peppers. And again, peppers, these little white seeds that you find embedded in the pepper, have huge medicinal properties as well. That's why I always say add peppers to everything. Just have that healing thing. And then we have ripe olives. So if I take away our main thing here, all of these ingredients you should have every day in your salads. We should have a salad every day. And so you already have that. So today, we only have a small amount of our main ingredient. So I only really need to use half of these, and I can throw the other half onto a salad. So our main ingredient, and I just wanted to make this quick because I knew the preaching part would take a little bit of time today. So that's green jackfruit. I know you guys are into the barbecue pulled jackfruit. No. First of all, these type of things, a whole fruit, it's a fruit, it comes from the green jackfruit that you guys have seen me, that thing weighs about 25, 30 pounds when it comes off of a tree. But in its green state, it's more on the vegetable side. And that's where you get it canned because you can't get it any other kind of way because of the countries that it grows in. It can only come here like this. And so you get it green, and this is what it looks like when you take it out. It's very similar to the texture of tuna fish. Pretty much doesn't have a taste in the green state, the vegetable state, quote unquote. And so it's somewhat neutral. So say if you wanted to make something similar to a tuna salad or whatever you wanted to do, then it takes on pretty much the taste and the texture of the ingredients that you add to it. We're just going to make a really good side vegetable dish with it. But if I wanted to do a barbecue jackfruit, this is the way that you would do it. You would take the green jackfruit and put some barbecue sauce and whatever else you wanted on it and just take on the seasonings of that flavor, and it would be far better for you than cooking the jackfruit. That is just like cooking the banana. I mean, all of the natural enzymes, and it's the enzymes that we want to focus on, people. The enzymes are what's going to keep us well. So all of this food is filled with enzymes. When you're a child, up until the age of 12 to 16 or so, the body generates and produces its own enzymes. After that age, it doesn't have the ability to do that. But enzymes are what keeps us alive. And so it's important that we put back, into that deposit that you need on a regular basis for the functionality of the different tissues, organs, and glands. You need enzymes, enzymatic functions. You hear it all the time. No one talks about it like they should. But that is the real health thing, that and parasites. I tell people the two. But the best place to get enzymes are from raw fruits and vegetables. And that is why you can drink vegetable juice or raw fruit juice, 2 pints a day, and just start to heal the body immediately and almost rejuvenate the cellular structure. And that's basically like going back in time, what do they call it? Reverse aging. And so you use that to do whatever you want to do. Then we have some of my favorite seasonings. Kelp, I always use this for people that love salt. I tell them this comes directly from the sea. It's a sea vegetable. And if it comes from the sea, it's going to be salty tasting because of the salt water. However, the amount of trace minerals that you get are ridiculous considering they're so easily to get in your diet just by simply sprinkling this on. Now, what I use a lot are raw sea vegetables, which I don't have. I'm going to have to go grab some in a second. And then we have whatever honey. If you want to pay the extra money for Munka honey, then you can. Or you can have people gift it to you because they know you love it and you just don't believe in paying $25 for some honey. I have cinnamon, I have garlic powder, and turmeric. These are just your go-to seasonings because they have so many health properties associated with them. And then when you're taking something that's somewhat neutral in taste, these help to bring more of the flavor of the natural vegetables that we're going to be using out. But this is pretty much all you would eat. And then, of course, we're going to make it all sushi with some olive oil. We could also put a tad bit of apple cider vinegar in here. You could use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6, additional things here that you can use or not. You could just simply eat the jackfruit with a little oil on it and a little bit of sea salt, and you will be fine. I'm gonna grab some sea vegetables. So I forgot to put these out. So I talk about these a lot. And I always tell people what it reminds you of. It looks like rat turds. I know that's a terrible thing, but that's exactly what it looks like. Because whenever I see it, I'd be like, I know daggone well there are no rats in here. So that's what it looks like. And so, here's a trick. So these, what I do is I take about a cup or 2, and you put it in a bowl, and then you simply add hot water. Really hot water. And that's because it comes directly from the sea. The sea vegetable is dried up. You simply add the water to it. And then in 10 to 30 minutes, you can rinse that water off if you want. And then it's going to start looking like cooked kale. So I'm just going to let you see what it looks like. But this is 100% certified organic and some other good stuff that I get mine from. So a lot of times I will take it as it is when I'm doing a dish like this. Because the importance of doing this is just so that you can bring it back to life. Because what? It's pretty much a dehydrated state. This is what it looks like in the sea because what? It's in water. So when it sits in the water, that's what it looks like. When you extract it from the water so that you can package it and get it to people away from the sea, then that is what it looks like. My guy is doing aerating the soil and a whole bunch of other stuff. Can't believe this weather. They say this is the warmest Halloween in 50 years. I hope you guys have True Pop popcorn to give to your little trick-or-treaters, by the way. And so, the seaweed, this salad is going to have the moisture from the jackfruit. It tastes fine, just by itself. You have the moisture from the olives, the onions and the peppers mixed with the olive oil, and then if I put some apple cider vinegar in it, if I put some of these in a dehydrated state, because raw food dishes always taste better when they've sat for a day or so. So because I'm so greedy, I'm going to have a little bit of it this evening, but I'm going to really start eating it tomorrow or the next day. It's not a whole lot. I only had 1 can of jackfruit. So here's the other thing when you're mixing things like this. Is you want to put your main ingredient in last. So if we were doing, say, a walnut pate, we would have pretty much the same ingredients. We'd have red onions, we'd have celery, we'd have parsley and cilantro, have lots of garlic, and then we would maybe have some peppers. So we'd put that all together, put the olive oil in there, put some sea salt in there with it, mix it all up, and then we would add the grinded soaked walnuts. So as I keep thinking, and I'm going to mince the garlic in this so that they're not big whole chunks. So as I'm doing that, I just want to say, I hope you guys have already voted, doing early registration. Wendy, by the way, you never got your freedom pins from me. I still have plenty of them if you need some. Because they'll be good to wear after the election also. just to say, the pins say we choose freedom. And that's what you chose regardless of which way the election goes. So we're going to start by mincing, I guess that was 6 or 8 pieces of fresh garlic. And we're getting very close, even though I've already talked about it, to our actual 25th year celebration, which is November the 14th. That Life by Dallas will be celebrating 25 years in business. That is amazing. So my friends that had babies after college, their babies are now graduating from college. When I started this thing, who would have ever known that it would have taken the path that it's taken? And I'm just so grateful to God that He entrusted me with this. I'm going to put a little honey in here. Then I'm going to throw my red onions in. I can eat so many onions, it's just ridiculous. So I get red onions every week, and I get the little pack. So it has about 6 or 7. I go through 6 or 7 whole onions every week, and they're all raw. I'm never cooking onions. I very seldom turn my stove on for anything, except to do my tea every morning. AskDrDallas organic herbal tea. You've got to have some. It keeps you well. Then we're going to add all of my celery. I'm going to mix that in together. So I'm kind of letting the garlic just take on its health. So we're going to put all of the onions. I was going to save half of this, but I think even though I only have a small amount of jackfruit. You can also use hearts of palm. You can probably find those a little better. You got to get green jackfruit. You go to some of the Asian markets. If not, you can get it on Amazon. It's pretty expensive though, the way that they sell it. Then we're going to put maybe just half of the herbs in. Half of the parsley, half of the cilantro, my favorite. Mix that in a little bit. It looks like now the garlic is pretty much dissipated. It's got a nice little blend there. So now I'm going to pour a considerable amount of olive oil. Just great to lubricate our joints and ligaments. It's cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. So then it becomes a little moist. Now that I have my main ingredients in, I think I will add a tad bit, not much, apple cider vinegar. Now here's another trick. So you've got your main herbs and veggies already tossed, pretty lubricated with the oil. Now's the best time to put your seasonings in, especially if you're going to be using a considerable amount. So here's my sea salt, dulse. Put probably that maybe half a tablespoon. Just a little bit of garlic powder because we've got enough fresh garlic. A tad bit of turmeric, just because, and then a little cinnamon, which also gets that blood circulating. I'm going to mix that all in again. This is so easy, and though I pre-prepped before we met, because I was waiting on my guy to get through the really noisy part of the composting stuff. So now we're going to throw in our olives and the jackfruit. Now I'm simply going to fold that in so that it's not as sturdy of a mix with the fork. See? Didn't that? I would love to have had 2 cans of the jackfruit. I forgot I had that can left. I think I ordered 6 cans online. And that's not like me. I usually never leave 1 can. So I had 1 can left, so it's less jackfruit and more veggies than anything, but they're great tasting veggies together. And you just need a little bit of the jackfruit. You don't need a whole lot with each spoonful. And now that's only sat for a small period of time. See what we have here? This is what that seaweed looks like. So this, I have at least a 1/4 cup of this in my salads. every day. So I'm just going to press on this and add a little cold water to it. See? You don't have to. Like I said, be careful sometimes when you're buying stuff like that. Unlike the honey, if you get raw honey, it's raw honey. Whether or not you want the Australian Manuka honey is a different thing. But when you're buying seaweed and you see it for $2 a pack versus $12, then just kind of look and see what water it comes from and whether or not it's certified. So we put a little in there, and that's what really brings the flavor out when you mix that with the jackfruit. And then we just have this wonderful looking salad, and it's so colorful, and it's so tasty. You can put some additional sea salt in there if you want, but I find when you're using the mini sweet peppers and you throw some olives in, you really don't need much of anything else. I always just go overboard on anything that comes from the sea. It's great for your hair, your skin, your nails. If you're having any problems with imperfections on your skin, your hair is stuck, it's not growing or it's thinning, got a little acne here or there, dry spots, just load up on the seaweed and you can get rid of that. We don't need any more oil. So then what you do, you always keep your stuff in the windowsill to let it get very ripe. That's a very ripe avocado because you can see my thumbprint. And then this this tomato is good. So slice the avocado, slice the tomato, put it onto a plate, dump a couple of tablespoons or spoonfuls of that on there, and you'll be pleasantly surprised, you and your guests. A lot of times we think that we have to prepare healthy food for ourselves, and then we put something else out for our guests, or we take our guests out to eat. But this type of food, they would love, guaranteed. It's fabulous. I'm not going to eat any in front of you right now because I already know what it tastes like, and I'm going to have it later. So good. And if you're at that stage where, or not, because you can do with a pita bread, stuff the pita bread with that and the avocado and the onion. And that's really good. That's really good tasting. So, who do you say he is in your life? If you recognize that he is the Christ, the anointed one, the Son of God, does he have that reign in your life and in your heart? Are you obedient? Are you letting people know that he is the one that you believe in and that you honor? Are you making a difference? Can people see him in you when people leave you? Do they feel like they've been with Christ? That's the key. On that note, what are we doing next time? I've closed up the Bible. So next time, I think we're moving, if not next time, the following time, we're just verses away from chapter 9, and that's when things really are starting to heat up. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions about anything, always feel free to put it into the chat box, the line there. I always review this before I upload it to the YouTube channel. And when I'm going through that, I'm looking at your questions. So I always get back to you. Just may not be within a day, but I do that. So if you have any questions about anything, feel free. And like I said, this will be uploaded to YouTube. So you can go get this one or any of the other ones and try the recipes. Don't make me ask you. Don't make me ask you. Like Jesus had to ask. I don't want to know. I don't want you to tell me. No, this doesn't help me. I just like looking at you every week or whatever. I don't know. I guess it would have to help others. You would just like looking at me or just like hearing me, and I don't think that's the case. So I hope the information has been helpful. I really do. I really do. Because we need some help in this world. We really do. And I'm trying to make a difference. I hope I'm making a difference. I am going to see if I can steal an hour to go and put some more flowers in the backyard. For those of you who love pansies, boy, Lowe's had the super deal, 50% off of everything. And I just acted like I wanted to, now that all my trees are gone in the backyard, I've been out on the jack, I'm going to build a fire pit back there. We've been in the yard half the winter, so I have tons of flowers. So anyway, it's been fun. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks.